All right, welcome to the podcast, episode 2. Me Dark presents Scary Movie Madness. I didn't say the name of the podcast in the first episode because I didn't know what the name was yet.
I mean, that's fair. It was kind of a throwaway first episode almost because we have plans for these, right? And that one was kind of a one-off. We won't do 10 movies in one podcast again.
That was a lot to get through, and I think I underestimated the task of putting a podcast like that together the way that I wanted to, like putting all the movie clips in there for YouTube and stuff like that, and all the graphics and stuff that I had to build. Because it was all from scratch, like it's the first time.
Yeah, and it was really just kind of figuring out what we're going to talk about. Where's it going to go?
Yeah. Well, because like we said, we didn't know it was going to be a podcast, so we started watching those movies for fun on our own. So we had already watched the 10, and it was like, okay, let's just get them all out of the way in the first episode. So now we have a new batch of 10. It has nothing to do with the slashers. And by the way, the slashers that we picked, they weren't supposed to be like, well, first of all, we wanted to stick in the 20th century, which we're doing, I think, with all of the first runs of these. But we didn't meticulously craft what we thought would be the top 10 best slashers. We just picked 10 random slashers off the top of our head, basically.
Not like the top of our head, but there was some method to the madness of like, those were pretty well known when you think of a slasher movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it was well thought out, but it by no means was comprehensive.
No, because we came across some other slashers that were from that time period that were like, oh, this would be a cool thing to watch, but.
Yeah, we were like, oh, we forgot this one. We forgot. Yeah. We're not going to tell you what those ones are because what if we want to talk about them later?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think we will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're doing, these are supernatural horror movies.
Yeah, I mean, listen, don't marry to the topic title that we've given them. We just kind of tried to bucket things as like why we would pit these against each other. So this next round is, things that have some supernatural element.
Yeah, that's sort of it's the genre of horror that we're basing it in. I guess because, I don't know, slashers do become supernatural at some point. It's like a subcategory of the super. But I don't know, as far as like slashers go, they're usually cheesy and they're more about like the gore and the jump factor than they are about story. A lot of these like more supernatural ones are a little bit more story driven, a little bit more interesting. So we started with 2 Stephen King. Well, I was going to say films, but really Stephen King wrote the novel, his first novel, Carrie. And I don't know when he wrote Pet Sematary. I guess sometime in the 80s, because that's when the movie came out. I guess he was blessed with getting his books adapted into like Hollywood right away. It was only 2 years later that they were like, oh yeah, we're going to make a movie about this.
Yeah. And it's actually like the made for TV series, right? You have It, which was made for TV. It was, multi-part, and then some film versions.
Now, it doesn't fall on this supernatural list because it's not a film technically.
Technically, in this era, it was a made for TV movie,
right.
And it was in parts.
Now, I never saw the It TV series. You had seen it. Yes. And I remember as a kid, it was like, you could rent it on VHS, but it was like a double tape thing.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my God, is this the longest movie ever? I don't think that I understood.
It's like Titanic.
Yes. But I don't think that I understood that it was like a mini series. So obviously they couldn't fit it all on one tape. I just thought, oh my God, this is the longest movie of all time. But I don't know. After we saw the new It, you were like, I still think the old one is still pretty scary, even though this one was scary.
Not scarier, but I felt it would be still scary.
You showed me one clip on YouTube. What is the scene?
So the one scene that always horrified me, so I tell Mark about this all the time, but legit when I was a kid, after watching It, I would not take showers without somebody outside the door because I was convinced that Pennywise was going to come get me out of the drain. So so ridiculous to say it now. So that scene where they're in the shower and all the shower heads turn on really, really hot. You see the steam, all that. And he comes up out of the drain. And I have this image of what it was. To be fair, the image in my mind is kind of like the completed moment when his teeth are showing and like he actually does look terrifying. But to your point, when we watched it and we're watching him actually come out, it's almost like claymation of him coming out of the drain.
Well, yeah, I imagine they didn't have the biggest budget.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it really looks bad, to be honest. So I still think the idea is terrifying, but definitely as an adult, I don't know. If it would scare me
especially
as
coming
much.
from when we had just watched the film and how well the effects are done. The visual effects are absolutely incredible on the new It movies.
But it's something to be said about just how Stephen King created this character that was so terrifying that, yeah, maybe back then with the tools that they had and the vision, it didn't execute as well for, longevity's sake. But he did leave us with an iconic character that now was reimagined. I mean, I don't like to spoil anything, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good, the new one.
Oh my God. The new one, especially since I never saw the original one, that was my first experience with it.
Yeah.
And it immediately, the first one, I wasn't too crazy about the second one, but the first one immediately jumped up on like top of my horror list. Like it felt like to me, it belonged like in the top 10 immediately. And it had the potential to grow like.
That's saying a lot.
As an I swear, I mean, I really, really, really loved that movie. I thought it was incredible.
For our friends and family listeners who know Mark, for him to, really double down, it's a lot.
I don't throw praise lightly.
You don't. Remember? We don't give awards for art.
We don't give
but
awards
he's ranking
for art.
it.
Yeah. So we're talking about the other Stephen King ones that do fall into this list, and that's Carrie and Pet Sematary. We don't have official rankings for these yet because we have yet to watch the other 8 that are in this group. Yeah, so we're going to build up. It's not going to be all 10 at once. So we'll talk about them and then we'll sort of reveal the rankings of them after we've spoken about them on individual episodes. So I think we should start with Pet Sematary, because it was just bad, and I feel like I'd rather.
I disagree.
Okay. Why do you disagree?
I don't think it was as bad. Like, we went into that, for those who follow us on Instagram, every night that we're watching a movie, I post about it. So we love for people to be interactive. Tell us what you think is going to happen here, what you think we're going to say. That one, I specifically said I was trying to be unbiased because I kind of felt like it was going to be a dumpster fire.
Yeah, you're the one that initially called out that, are you sure you really want to watch this movie? It's going to suck.
That's exactly what I said. I was like, well, do you want to watch a movie that sucks or do you want to watch something that you're going to be into tonight? And he said, I want to watch something that sucks.
I did,
so that's why we chose.
I had like a crazy weekend and I just didn't want to think. Well, we had watched Carrie the night before, and then I was so drained from all that stuff that I was like, let's just watch this dumb one.
So we thought we were watching something easy. I thought we were watching something easy, but I didn't think it was as bad, right? Like, I think it started off and it had all the feelings of a book turned a movie in the worst ways.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, it wasn't really like super popular actors except Herman Munster, which I exclaimed right away.
Yeah, he's amazing. I love that guy.
Yes, he's so good. And so I think that helped save it, right? Like, having someone who was just really good at that character. Obviously, the dad, we couldn't stand the entire thing. But I also think, like, as you progress through the movie, you really understand, like, the contrast that they were trying to make of, like, this wholesome, happy family and how broken this man gets to the point where, like, he knows these are bad decisions he's making, but he's so stuck in the curse, if you will, that, like, he can't stop.
The soil of a man's heart is stonier.
Boom.
Yeah. Which is it's a weird way of saying that men are sort of stupid when you give them powers.
Fair enough.
It's like
double down.
Yeah, and that they chose it to be the heart too. It's like it's a more easily corruptible heart. I feel like that men in general will abuse power given to them.
Weak as fuck.
And yeah, well, and then when you do that, when you give somebody power, they do tend to be a little less sympathetic and, act less on emotions and things like that. So that whole theme of it, I do like. The actor portraying that role, very, very weak. It was just I don't know. I thought it was a poor choice.
Yeah.
Which is, it kind of sets up disappointment for the whole film right away, because you're like, okay, this is the main guy in the movie, so it's like it's mainly about him, and I don't like him. So that's a hard sell, right? Like, you're gonna go through a whole movie watching somebody that you just don't like. But one thing that strikes me about this film, it's just there's an insane amount of plot holes. Like, where are the Karens at this point in time? Because if you have trucks in this town in Maine that are they're notorious for like driving 80 miles an hour down this road, and they're like
residential.
Yeah, they literally live right next to this road.
Where are the stop signs?
There's nothing. There's no speed bumps. There's no guardrails built on like, you would think like, okay, I get it, like animals are mainly the ones getting hit by the truck, but like just build like a guardrail or something.
Fair, but like, how reckless are these parents that they let their wobbly child wander into streets without any care? Like, there's 3 adults. I'm
just saying, if the Karens were around, that road would have had 90 speed bumps. There would have been barriers
stop
around
signs, crosswalks.
Yeah, there's no shot. Like the town like would have complained, and I mean, because this is,
would have been at board meetings with signs, picketing.
And they even like it, and it's pretty much like right away, like they established that this road sucks, like when they moved there, and like the little boy is nearly hit like 5 minutes into the film, and Judd obviously has to rescue him, and don't wander over into that road or whatever the hell he does. He's got the weirdest voice.
It's the best.
It is the best, but it was hard to understand. I had to put the subtitles on halfway through the film because
it was like the accent with the drawl.
Yeah, you and I kept finding moments where we're like, what did that person say?
Because I felt like what he was going to say was really important. Like the quote that you were saying.
I didn't understand that
the first time. I was like, wait, what was the end of that?
So yeah, I think the first person to say it is the ghost or whatever.
Yeah.
It's my first problem with this film. And I don't know the book. So
the ghost is the worst part of this film, in my opinion.
Yeah. Obviously maybe the ghost had some sort of a different idea in Stephen King's mind. Like, maybe on paper it makes sense because you're like, well, they don't ever have to see this ghost. It doesn't really ever have to interact. It can almost be interpreted as like
is them, it in his head, or is it
like
not?
A guardian angel kind of guiding you, because that's sort of what that's what the ghost serves in this film, is like sort of their guardian angel.
Yeah.
But
trying to stop them.
Yeah. So the connection of this ghost though to the main character is very, very weak. I mean, it makes almost no sense other than he's a doctor and this is a patient that was brought into his hospital, which, by the way...
But they tie it. They say he was the last as his spirit left.
Right. But again, that connection is like weak. Like, if I died in a hospital because I got hit by a truck, I wouldn't be like lurking around the doctor that spent like 2 minutes working on me before I passed away because my injuries are so severe. Like, he's so invested in guiding this doctor towards the promised land, and the doctor's just not listening the whole time. So I'm like, I don't get like why would this ghost have this agenda? But I was super confused. I don't even know who drags this guy into the hospital, which looks like a school. It doesn't even look like a hospital.
At first, I thought it was them dragging him into high school or something.
That's what it looked like.
They found him in the street, or I don't know. And then I was like, wait, what? And then I thought it was like a drill, because she ends it on like when he's going to work. And she's like, good luck at your first day of school. I was thinking, like, is he not a doctor yet? Maybe he's still a med student. Yeah. And then like, I was like, okay, they're bringing him in. You remember I was like, I don't understand. Yeah. And I thought it was like a drill. And I was like, oh no, this is supposed to be real. But that's also like going back to this ghost character that I felt like it was so badly, like his acting was terrible. It was so bad. Like, it felt, any part of the film that felt good when he popped in, I was disconnected.
Yeah, well, the one thing that they did well with him, and the one thing they do very well in this film, is the gore. The makeup is surprisingly legit. Like, that brain
looked good.
And like the blood like oozing out of it. It looks really good. But I think what's cheesy is when he comes back as a ghost, still looking like that.
But it's also like he's got the glow.
Yeah. Well,
the aura around him.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't really know how to do any of that stuff back then. You're lucky you got even that.
Yeah, it was bad. Just bad.
So, and then there's another character in this film, which I don't understand why this character is in it either. You could have done the whole movie without it, but it's that like the caretaker woman who commits suicide. She has like stomach pain or something.
Very early on.
I don't, somebody please explain to me what her purpose is in this film, because I don't know. You can just make this movie without her and it doesn't change it.
Yeah, because it's like she refuses the help of the doctor and then mysteriously is just dead, and the only value I can think of is that she teaches the little kid like he's gonna get his balls chopped off or something. Right?
I don't even know.
That was the one line.
That was the one line?
Yeah, like that she teaches the little girl like to say that whatever, or his nuts cut or something like that.
Oh yeah. She said like these inappropriate things, and the daughter picks up on it and starts saying
with the creepy ass cat. I love and hate that cat.
That cat, well, actually, one of the better castings in the film is the cat. The cat is very, very, it's memorable. I remember that face still to this day.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw the cat on screen, I was like, oh, yes, I remember this cat. It has a very distinct face. Mm-hmm. And my goodness, the performance of the cat. We're like,
way better than the ghost. Way better than the ghost.
How did they get the cat to do any of those things?
It was so obedient. Some of the things it was doing trick-wise, I was like, that's the most well-trained cat I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I think at one point you're like, there had to be some animal cruelty going on.
I did think that.
For this, to get this cat to do these things.
Some of the things the cat was doing, I was like, no, because they're torturing that cat to get it to hiss like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was real. It wasn't a fake cat.
And it's a scary, I mean, I'm not really a cat person to begin with, but that's a scary
Yeah, because it's also like, they didn't go cliche. I like that, right? They didn't go black cat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's like was the first thing in my mind, right? Is like, you didn't do the stereotypical black cat on the 13th, like kind of garbage. And it was, he was gray. He had the gray cats with the yellow eyes are just as terrifying in my opinion.
Yeah. They make his eyes like glow.
And then they just do the extra glow on it. And it's like, but at the same time, like, no one's talking about why this cat's eyes are like that. Like everyone was just like, no, it's the same cat.
Yeah. The only thing they pick up on is the smell, right?
It smells bad.
Yeah, that it smells bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he gets this power from the neighbor Judd, the Herman Munster character. Mm-hmm. And it all starts because, the family goes to Thanksgiving dinner without him because the father
doesn't have a good relationship with
the
the family.
His father-in-law hates him for whatever reason, which they don't explain really. So again, why is it in the movie? Like, if you're not going to explain it and it's not going to impact the story much, really, other than we need some sort of plot device to separate him from his family. So every time they're not there, he makes bad decisions. So let's make it so, he's estranged from her family and she just visits them a lot. That's what it felt like to me. And I'm like, all right, I don't care. So he learns this power because the cat ends up dying while the family is away. And the neighbor, Judd, he feels bad about it because he doesn't think that the daughter, Ellie, is ready for her cat to die.
Yep.
So he's like, I'm going to take you beyond the regular Pet Sematary, to this Indian. It's basically a spin on an Indian burial ground is what it is.
Supernatural. You got the whole like pentagram type design, which I don't know if it's really Indian related. It's more witchcraft, but they tie it to the Indian curse.
What it is, it's just a play off of that.
Yeah.
That trope is the Indian burial ground. You bury something in there, you disrupted the sacred ground or the soil in some way, and then negative, bad things are going to happen.
Exactly.
So what is strange to me is he reveals this power knowing full well about all the bad shit that's happened from people burying and
his own dog. He knew because he did it with his dog.
He knows everything about this cemetery and how dangerous it is. And he even goes through this whole monologue about how sometimes dead is better, right? That, sometimes because the result of the reanimated thing is an abomination. So dead is better. Knowing all of this, he just is like, what? This cat, it just can't die. Like, it's going to be worth all the chaos that will ensue, that I know will ensue, just to have this cat come back to life. Like, really? He knew that this was going to snowball into other shit because it had before, right? And this has happened in the town before where a guy, buries his son there to bring him back to life. And the son is just absolutely like not even close to what, he's just a zombie, so basically. Weird too, yeah. So, I mean, he knows all of this history. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, I got to save this cat's life because this kid's going to be upset forever.
Go and get another cat and your kid won't know.
Well, you'll know because that cat, you can't mistake it. In this instance, that's a hard cat to replace. But even so, the kid will cry for a week. It'll be done. Movie over. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it.
Well, we know why it didn't happen that way then.
Exactly. And that's my problem with this movie is it just sort of, or the story, I guess, because I don't know how much they changed it from what Stephen King originally wrote. It kind of, it's kind of all over the place in terms of, we're getting some knowledge about some bad things, but then they're just doing it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my thing is like, I just try to take the story for what it is, right? Like if you start trying to poke at all the holes and trying to fill it, you're going to have like a 4-hour movie.
Yeah.
Right. So there's only so much that they could fit in. But to your point,
eliminate some other things that don't work and then spend the time.
Yeah. Like, don't make it be that she's going away for Thanksgiving. Make a different story that like he couldn't get out of work and they were going to visit family and he couldn't get there. Right. If you can't explain to me why his family hates him her family hates him so much.
Right.
Then fake it till you make it and just be like, I can't get off work. There's nothing I can do. That would have been an easier, okay, I get it. Now I know why he's here alone.
Yeah, because then it's just an aside. It doesn't have much really to do with the characters.
It's just a way of getting him alone.
Yeah, when you tell me like a personal thing about a character like that, then I expect there to be some sort of a struggle, both internally and externally about that. But it's almost like the wife is totally fine with it. She's like, yeah, I know my dad hates you. Like, whatever, we'll just go eat Thanksgiving without you. And then it'll be fine when we come home. Like, nobody acts like that.
Yeah, I mean, you think it was to tie in what happens at the funeral for the little boy.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, it's like, nah, you could have, again, played that off pretty simply of like, you let the kid run into the street and I hate you for that, right? Like, it didn't need to be tied to like, oh, they already hated this guy. It was just like, it was really a stretch. So you think about all those little things. See, I ignore those ones when I feel like it's not going to go anywhere, but it can definitely stick in your head of like waiting for something to happen that wasn't going to be.
Yeah, and speaking of which, one of the more memorable scenes in this movie is the kid getting hit by the truck.
Yeah.
It's actually, it's pretty well done. I wasn't crazy about this director as a whole. She mainly had experience doing music videos before she got this gig.
Music videos, horror films, whatever.
Yeah, so I don't know. I can't help but think that maybe with a stronger director or a more seasoned director, this movie maybe could have went a little further, but she does do a good job with this scene. It is a memorable scene in my mind. It's an iconic horror scene. I mean, I'm not going to take that away from her or this movie. It's I wouldn't say that it's scary, but it's suspenseful. And it's disturbing.
Yeah, you don't know if it's going to be that it happens or that it comes close again. And
you pretty much know because they foreshadow it pretty hard in the beginning. You're like waiting for that to happen.
Yes, but you're also in your mind being like, okay, just caught him last time. Like I'm saying that you're psychs hoping. You out to think.
Yeah,
like,
you're hoping.
No, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. But no, they do it. First of all, let's talk about this little kid. And the fact that I recognized his face immediately, right? And then I just said to myself, this child was born to play a shitty child because he's like throwing things. And then I was like, where did I remember him? Where do I remember him? And it was Kindergarten Cop and Full House. And he was always the like annoying bad kid. He's the little shitbag kid. I said this kid was just born to be a shitbag kid. But so good. And then, he turns into basically a Chucky doll.
He does turn into a Chucky doll at the end. Well, I even noticed because I guess this movie did come out after Child's Play, but obviously the book was written probably before. Yeah. But the whole thing with the slashing of the Achilles or the ankle.
Oh, I couldn't even watch
with
that.
The scalpel. I mean, that's pretty much exactly what Chucky does in Child's Play when they're in the mental institution. Is He jumps down, it knocks over all the tools onto the floor. He grabs the scalpel. The doctor comes in and he runs and slashes the ankle. In this one, it's a little different, but he's under the bed. The cat jumps down and distracts the judge.
It's
Judd's
like they're
character.
like a duo.
Yes. Yeah, they're a zombie duo. Mm-hmm. Also, a pretty good scene. I mean, now that you mention it, when the little boy comes back to life and he goes to Judd's house and that whole thing with him just, he wants to play and...
Yeah, he's like, hi, I already played with mommy.
Oh my God,
now I want to play with you. Yeah. And I was like, fuck you, no.
The voice is scary.
So scary.
And this movie actually did scare you. That Judd scene, the Judd's death scene, you were covering your eyes at one point.
Yeah, because I didn't want to see that part. I was like, no.
Yeah.
It reminds me in like Saw. Not Saw, lying. Hostel. Hostel, the first one, that's one of the things that happens is the guy or somebody's in the chair. I have not watched this movie in a really long time, so don't hate me. But
it sounds
sitting
like
in
you're
the chair,
describing Saw, though.
No. I know this is Hostel. Okay. Like I pictured it in my face. In my head. In my head. He's sitting in the chair, and one of the ways that they like demobilize that person, that character, is they slice their Achilles heel, and it just I can't.
It's a bit for some reason there is something about that, right?
No,
it's because you can. It's one of those things you can feel.
It's like I can feel that I can no longer walk now.
Yes.
Thank you.
The amount of and he gets in there deep. It's like a 2 or 3 inch cut.
Strong little demon baby.
Yeah, that was the next. He was freakishly strong.
But I mean, supernatural, right? That's why we're in this category. It's not meant to be like, it has to be supernatural.
He bites right through his neck.
Yes.
I mean, I guess that's sort of like a classic zombie thing where like their thresholds for like stuff like bite strength and grip strength, all that stuff is like accelerated when you're a zombie because like there's no pain.
Yeah.
If I don't know, it just comes with like that genre, so to speak. Like you just expect that something that's reanimated from the dead is going to have some sort of super strength kind of power.
So the funny thing about this movie too is that when we posted about it, so again, for those on our Instagram, we'll do the little poll about what do you think? And we want everyone to get involved because I love just seeing what people are going to think about it before I watch it, especially when it's a movie I haven't seen. And it was an overwhelming that it would be good.
That Pet Sematary would be good.
Pet Sematary would be good.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Although I think part of the reason is that in Pet Sematary, it does have some legitimately like scary stuff. Like if you were putting it up against the slashers in terms of like what's scarier, it's going to be pretty high on that list.
It's better than Friday the 13th.
Oh, it's way scarier.
Like I was able to watch every scene in Friday the 13th, but in Pet Sematary, like you said, I was like, oh, I can't watch that.
The sister. So this visual of her sister with the spinal meningitis on the bed.
I didn't even talk about that.
It's disturbing. It's scary. And even like when they bring her back at the end which I didn't really get how that worked because it was almost like her boy Gage like transformed into the sister.
Yes.
There's a moment because when the mom, she senses
something's wrong.
She's sensing something's wrong because Ellie, the daughter, keeps dreaming of all the stuff that her father is doing.
Yes.
So she ends up over at Judd's house also after Gage has killed him. And she sort of gets lured up the stairs by the sound of her sister's voice. So it's really cool. I like that they did it. They don't really explain how it happens. But when she's off, she finally makes her way up to the room and the sister's off in the corner and she comes into the light and she starts slow and then she does that quick little run up and she's like all hunched over like the hunchback.
It's kind of like The Grudge like, except you see the face.
Yeah, it's real movement though. It's not like a manipulated camera movement to make her look creepy. That actress just like really nailed that whole essence of that the sister is just hard to look at.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where I say that, yes, the storyline had holes, right? It was a book. Obviously, I think it's easier to like read an entire book and feel like the story makes sense and then translating it to a movie that's going to keep attention and hit on the right things is another challenge in itself. But the fact that there were scenes that were scary, right? There was definitely some redeeming moments from the acting. the gore was on point, right?
Yes.
I don't think they really went out of their reach except for the ghost situation.
Okay.
You know, like I felt like, again, if they had kept it more as like a voice and not the visual of the guy, maybe it would have not felt as cheesy.
Right.
I'm specifically also like, it's stuck in my mind when the ghost visits the wife, right?
Yeah.
That's the worst. I was like, this is a joke.
Yeah, she like hitchhikes back and he's like in the truck with her.
Okay. So weird. And just the way, like, it's almost like that guy is in a different movie than the movie we're watching. Like his delivery of his lines and everything is like, it's like he was trying to be a comedian almost. I don't know. It was just bad.
Yeah.
So I just take that part out of it. Do I think this will be really high on the list?
I was going to say, what is
your prediction? I don't think it'll be really high. Looking at the list, I don't know. It might be last.
I think it's going to come in last.
We'll see.
We'll see is right. I mean, I could be pleasantly surprised, I guess.
I mean, we have some good options on this list. So
yeah.
And speaking of.
Oh, yes. Speaking of, let's move on to Carrie because holy crap, is this movie awesome.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so awesome. And it just across the board, like, first of all, Brian De Palma, I think, is the director, and he's a genius. Like, some of the camera moves in this film are just absolutely perfect. All the acting was at Sissy Spacek.
Sissy Spacek. Again,
crap.
like, there's some of these people out there that have created these characters in our mind because their delivery of the role was so incredible. Like, there's no one else I can imagine. I know they remade Carrie. I don't even care.
I don't want to see it.
I don't care. No. I don't care because...
Actually, I kind of do want to see it now. Just so I can hate it.
Just so I can see it. Typical Mark commentary. But yeah, it's like Anthony Perkins' Psycho, right? Like the character was what it was because she nailed the fragility in the beginning. And then that moment where she became savage and was like, no, mom, fuck you. We're not doing this anymore. Right? Like that moment, but then to come full circle back to it, the whole thing was incredible, in my opinion. Yeah. Like her alone carries that entire story.
Well, yeah, I agree. She certainly, that actress makes that the role of Carrie and that character super iconic. Yeah. Which is why it surprises me that they even try to remake stuff like that.
Don't touch it.
Yeah,
Stop
because it's just so. I think they fail to realize that it is iconic because of those performances, and it just has that. It's almost like trying to make Taxi Driver again. Although I guess they did try to with the Joker, which whatever. We're not going to get into that. But like, you're not going to make Taxi Driver again because Robert De Niro is that character. You know, he's Travis. But like, there's nobody else that's going to do it that way. I think Sissy Spacek deserved that exact same respect because she's that good. Obviously, a lot of heavy religious themes in this movie. There's crosses everywhere in every frame.
So much imagery and so much symbolism for it.
Yeah, I mean, they really hammer you over the head with it. And then there's the whole play on the colors too, with like, you know, her mom, you know, talking about the red, and there's red all over the place and where things are considered to be evil, which is interesting because like that's sort of her first sin in this movie, right? Is she gets her period and it's the red. And, you know, she obviously comes home to a volcano of a mother who finally learns that after all this time, you know, she gets her period super late. Like I guess she's a senior in high school. Is that possible?
Yeah. I mean, it can be. I mean,
it's a supernatural thing, right? It's like, this is when she gets her powers.
Yeah. I mean, I think that whole scene when we talked about it too is just how mean the girls are. And I remember you going like, they're so mean. And I'm like, that's real. Like when I was growing up, I can't believe it. Girls were like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Such a like herd mentality of like, this is my squad, and like picking on the one girl. Like there's definitely people in my mind I think about in school that, you know, people did treat the same way. And I always was the one who was like, back the fuck off. You know, I always considered myself the weird girl, but I was never tormented like that. But I thought that they did a really great job of like how relentless the girls were and like how petty and childish it was because they are children, right? Yeah. Like, so the things that they were doing were so childish, but you're like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. They're immature little teenagers and their biggest concern in life is going to the fucking prom. Like,
right.
like,
I mean, yeah, the characters all seemed pretty believable outside of, there's that one sort of cartoonish girl with she always wears the baseball cap and she's got the really bad haircut, like the bangs are like.
She's got the clown eyebrow arch.
I mean, she's a little cartoonish, but I thought the rest of the characters were pretty well fleshed out. They were pretty well conceived. I don't know who the actress is who plays the mom. Do you? I mean, she was amazing as well. But that stuff always freaks me out. This is like that movie, The Mist, when you have like those uber radical religious people who, they take it too far. It's like, yeah,
they live in a bubble of their religion.
Well, even like the house kind of like resembles like a church, even on the outside and the inside. Like you get like these archways, like these dagger carved archways in the house, and
they look like old style churches before they got grandiose.
Right. Yeah. And the outside is sort of like, it's white. So it like, it has like this purity to it. And it has like the shape of like a cathedral a little bit. Like they really, like they made sure, like, know that this is what this movie's about.
And it's white. Yeah.
It's a good versus evil. There's a lot of like the red versus the blue. Like the blue, Carrie wears a lot of blue in the beginning of this movie. And like you said, she's very delicate. She's very innocent. Mm-hmm. Because she does live under this like iron thumb of religion and having to say her prayers every night and read the Bible and
getting locked in a closet.
Yeah, like really abusive behavior. Yeah. So she obviously grows up her whole life abused, which leads to her being this social recluse. Everything really weaves in together nicely. It's a beautifully written story.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean. Like, there's sort of no wasted effort in that, when you compare it to Pet Sematary, which it's baffling to me that the same guy wrote both of those stories, but here we are.
But it's the execution because, again, they rewrite these things into a script, right? They take the most compelling moments of what was written and try to make a film out of it. And clearly, the squad team behind Carrie was like nailing it, and Pet Sematary was like, we were almost there.
No, you're 100% right. Like the art of screen adaptation, taking something that is a longer form and condensing it into a film that, really makes sense. It's hard to do. Yep.
And this is a stark contrast of that.
It's a stark contrast. So I did look this up because we noticed there's a couple references where, it says Bates High School and there's the Bates Pig Farm or whatever. And I was like, are they trying to, do some sort of reference to Psycho here? And sure enough, yes, it's exactly what it was. And it's not the name of the high school or anything in the original book. I forget what the actual name was, but they specifically changed it for the film, which is a nice touch, I guess. A little bit of an homage.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Homage to this isn't a slasher or anything, but.
Well, obviously they were heavily influenced by Psycho because there's
the psychological part, probably.
Well, no, there's music in this that is very closely resembling the shower scene music with the slashing when the mirror breaks.
Yep.
You see like she's finally like discovering that she has these powers and she doesn't really know how to control it. And it's that really frantic, frustrating moment. And then finally the mirror shatters. It's like almost a carbon copy of the Psycho theme. And then what did you think of John Travolta? I have to ask.
What do you mean?
Did you like him in this?
He had like such a, he was the goofy douchebag. Like that was his role. And
it's sort of a flat character.
Yeah. It's like his main purpose was to slit a pig's throat, get blood from it and hang a bucket. Like that was the main purpose.
Smash a pig with a sledgehammer is what he did.
Yeah. But obviously to get the blood, that's not going to do it. You got to slice and
obviously,
dice. I'm saying.
Obviously they
not
gutted this pig at one point.
Yeah. So, I think it's interesting too, right? It goes back to the times. And I think what Carrie does too is like, you look at some of the things that they're doing as teenagers. And I just was laughing to be like, look at this. He just opens a can of beer while he's driving. Like, no biggie. Oh, here's his car. Throw me a beer.
And I'm drinks like, what? The beer horribly, by the way. Spills
all over
it
his
all
face.
over himself.
Couldn't tell, like, were you sweating because the cops were there? Or did you just splash beer on your face like water at the sink. Like,
it was like he had never drank anything in his life.
So weird. I really still don't know if he was meant to be sweating. I feel like
no, it's beer.
Stop.
Yeah.
It also shows itself like in one scene, but not in another.
I'd be interested to know if that was like a director's choice or an actor's choice to be like, what if, I'm supposed to be so dumb.
Can I drink a beer while I drive?
Yeah, well, not only that, but like I don't even know how to drink the beer. Like, it's just,
then I throw it at my girlfriend. So the cops do pull me over. Now my car smells like beer everywhere instead of just casually putting my hand down. But again, dumb, stupid teenagers, right? Mm-hmm. Like not thinking. And to me, like, okay, that was realistic. There are dumb teenagers that do that shit and you should not. He didn't have like a ton of these scenes where you had to really like rate him. He's John Travolta. I mean, love him or hate him, he's an iconic actor in American history, right? Like,
so this is 1976. I don't know when Grease and Saturday Night Fever and all that stuff came out, but I equally like those movies are just so super cheesy, and he's kind of cheesy. And
hey,
Carrie,
I love Grease.
It sort of like makes me think like, why is John Travolta considered like an iconic American actor? Because he's never done anything good.
Because he sings, he dances, and he acts. He was a triple threat for the times.
I suppose. Well, you know what? I shouldn't say he's not done anything good. He's not done anything good for me. It's not my thing.
He has some good things.
Well, Face Off, but that's only because Nick Cage is a god.
There's another movie I'm thinking about, and I can't remember, with Halle Berry.
Oh my God, Swordfish.
Horrendous. I love that movie.
No, go back and watch it now. He has like this like pencil thin like little chinny goatee thing. I don't know. He just looks stupid.
All right. Well, haters gonna hate.
But Halle Berry's boobs are in it.
What about Look Who's Talking? Those movies are great. What?
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Look Who's Talking with the baby?
No, I never saw it.
What?
No.
Stop it.
I mean, seriously, if these are the movies that you're calling out as like why John Travolta is this amazing actor, you're failing at it.
No, I know. But still, it's not that I think he was amazing. I think it's just like he's well known. He's up there, household name with Brad Pitt from a generation that we did not grow up in.
It's just disrespectful. They're not even in the same league. Brad Pitt is a legend. All right, well, moving on from John Travolta because he's not really a big part of this
and
film.
That's the whole thing about this. You're asking me to rate his acting, and he had like 5 minutes total in the film.
So, I mean, in terms of iconic scenes, there's so many in this movie. Like, it's really hard to get through them all. I mean, we've already touched upon a bunch of stuff that's happened, but I think really the main focal point of this film is the actual prom itself, because
the dream sequence.
Yeah, so much of the meat of this movie takes place, and it's such a satisfying climax and resolution, the way that it builds, starting from, and they sow the seeds of it very, very well throughout, because you get that couple that sort of, the girl feels bad about how she treated Carrie, and she really wants to make amends, and she's like, you know what, I don't have to go to the prom. She asks her boyfriend, why don't you take her? Right. And it becomes this big thing with the teacher, because Carrie has this one teacher that just looks out for her. And she's like, what are you guys up to? Like, why is Tommy or whatever? I'm just going to call him Tommy.
His name is Tommy.
It is Tommy. Yeah, I didn't remember. I just guessed. Why is Tommy asking Carrie to the prom? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You guys are trying to, you're up to something, which is pretty cool, because even as an audience member, you're really not sure either.
You keep wondering if she's in on it, or if she really just wants to go see how it's going.
Exactly. Which, when you look back in hindsight, they do sort of tell you visually that that's not the case, because she's never really seen again with the other girl who is the one instigating. After they do their detention thing.
They keep it separate.
They kind of keep them separated, and they don't really have that interaction.
And you get that moment of like, she's sick of her shit when she's like, this is not over. Which I love, that the gym teacher literally just slaps the shit out of these girls.
Oh my God.
Every time.
Imagine that happening today.
Talk about the Karens again. But you know what? Maybe some people need to get slapped, because maybe you won't act like this wilding out. But
we watched a little behind the scenes on that too, and the actress was like, Brian really wanted me to slap her. So
22 times, she said?
29.
29.
And it was all real slaps.
Real.
That's a lot of takes to do for a slap.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian De Palma is savage.
It's some dedication to the art. But again, this is why we got a good movie out of it.
That is why you got a good movie out of it.
The dedication to the story.
Yeah, so they sow all those seeds of, this couple wanting to do this good deed about let's have her go to the prom. Like, it's kind of the last hurrah of high school. Like, she's not a bad person. Like, we can make amends and she deserves it type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Carrie, after fighting with her mother relentlessly and ultimately overpowering her because now she has these crazy powers. She can control things with her mind. And she basically tells her mom, sit down, shut up. I'm going to the prom. That's what I want to do. You can't stop me. And, the mom comes in, she sees her in the dress and she goes, red, it's the color of the devil or whatever. And she goes, oh, it's pink, mama.
The mama.
I love the mama is such a great little character
pink,
thing.
Mama.
Yeah. And she's so still dainty and friendly,
dainty
even though she's super powerful.
It's fine, mama.
Amazing. I love that contrast.
Ugh.
Anyway, they go to the prom and that dreamlike slow motion sequence that they launch into.
Yeah, that point.
When she gets announced as the prom queen. Right.
It's actually happening the whole time, right? Like the whole part of the prom is this
plot.
Dreamlike state that she's in that this could never happen to me and how is it really happening? And she's
You're right.
wrestling with whether to let go and enjoy it or to be uptight. And then to your point, we get to the point where she does finally let go and really just say, okay, this guy's not fucking with me and I'm going to enjoy this moment.
Yeah. So what you're describing too, part of that was when he finally gets her to dance.
Yep.
And they're doing that slow dance spin and the camera's spinning around them with it. And you really feel like you're in that kind of swirling moment with Carrie of oh my God, this is her first sexual kind of experience. And she's going through that swirling kind of emotion. And for him to take that camera and just spin it around them dancing for a long while too.
Yeah.
It totally put me in that mindset of a teenager with butterflies in their stomach, experiencing. Yeah. It kind of throws you for a loop. But what is kind of weird, and it's probably my one criticism, is if their whole plan was let's take Carrie to the prom as just a nice thing to do, this guy takes it a little far.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kissing her and he's really romancing her.
I couldn't tell if it was just really again, trying to make her feel super special or it was supposed to be understood that he was truly enjoying it and really being wow, this girl's great. But it's at the same time, she was barely talking. So it was how do you. But
at the same time, he has a girlfriend.
Fair.
I mean,
but
could you
high
imagine
school, immature idiots.
You were a teenage girl at some point.
I would slash his tires.
Well, not only that, would you have ever given up your date to some rando and then learn later that he actually kissed her during the date?
I would say I would be pissed that he kissed the other person, but I can't say no because I was dating someone and took someone else to their prom.
All right, we're not even going to talk about that.
I'm just saying, I can't say anything because my boyfriend was fine with that. I would be a shitty person to be no.
All right. Well, I stand corrected. I thought it was weird.
It's definitely weird, but in the context of the situation where she was trying to do a nice thing and making her feel accepted, maybe that girl just doesn't care and doesn't really like this guy because whatever, they're in high school, they're going to go off to college, who gives a shit, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the way that it starts to play out, you feel like he does mean it. And that's the whole thing with the prom king and queen, right? Because it's still tying together that idea of are they in on it, right? Mm-hmm. Because that the popular girl, they're planning what they're planning, but then you're why is Tommy on the ballot with Carrie so last minute, right? How do they get that on there? Why does he not think it's weird?
Right. Why does he not think it's suspicious?
Yeah. So you are still worried at that point that
I guess because he's like this superstar athlete.
Superstar jock.
He's like the most popular guy in school. Yeah. John Travolta's like the rebel-y guy that the popular girl dates.
Yeah, my God.
But he's like the quarterback, right? That everybody loves. So obviously whoever he brings to the prom is going to be, he's going to be on the ballot with whoever.
I feel like I would have been with John Travolta, which means that I would have been that shitty bitch.
Wow. Well, it's only because you don't like blondies.
Yeah. She's annoying.
It's not your type.
She literally fixed her makeup for like 25 minutes in that car. And like then made out with the guy and it was all ruined. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. And gives him a fake blowy.
Yeah. How was that happening?
I don't know.
It doesn't make sense. She kept talking the whole time. Yeah. So it made no sense.
It made no sense.
Again, we'll just let it pass because like who cares in the grand scheme of the film? But it was like one of those like, all right, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there's always those curious things that poke their head. No film is perfect. No.
But anyway, okay, so we see there's so many layers to this. We just keep jumping around.
Yeah.
So again, back to the
so they get announced as the prom king and queen, and obviously popular girl Travolta and cartoon, hat lady or whatever. They've all concocted this whole thing where they're going to replace a bunch of the ballots with, Tommy and Carrie. So they win because they want her up on the stage for the ultimate humiliation of dumping this bucket of pig's blood all over her head.
Sons of bitches.
The pacing of this is all super suspenseful. It's literally slow motion.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there. I mean, I was super engaged with it. Like the pacing didn't, even though it was slow, it felt so deliberate and so on point. And and there was like a bunch of these long shots and really cool camera moves where we would move from the bucket and we would follow the wire all the way down through the, through the ceiling, down the stage where, the girl who, I forget her name too, but the good girl, the one who's like happy for Carrie, she's there, and it follows down past her and under the stage, and that's the reveal of like, okay, they got this thing ready to go, and they're gonna pull it at any moment, and they do take their time pulling it. We get really multiple shots of like the hands.
But I think to your point, it's because you're supposed to be. It's supposed to be in slow motion,
like frozen in time.
Yeah, like it really is. Like think about when you see something that's about to happen and you see it in slow mo and you're like, no.
Yeah.
It's like that feeling like drawn out of like, no.
Exactly. No, you're dead on, because as a viewer, you're like, okay, this is Carrie's only moment in her life at this point where she's going to experience any
joy,
any semblance of happiness, any semblance of normalcy. And it's hanging by a thread. Literally. Because as soon as they pull that string and that blood lands on her, shit's gonna go down. Yes. So you're just like hanging in that moment of like, oh my God, I don't ever want it to end, because once it does, it ends for her too.
Yep.
So the blood falls.
So good.
The whole theme of the prom is all decked out in blue and clouds and heaven and good, and then the red.
As soon as everything happens, whoosh, red lighting.
Yeah, she turns the lights red. And it's almost like immediately she knows what to do. She's like, I'm going to hose down all this shit. I'm going to start an electrical fire.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to kill everyone.
Yeah, that's it. This was the last straw, you fucks.
Yeah. And what accelerates what's so great about this is the fact that we do go from all that slow motion for so long to like high speed chaos. The contrast.
Absolutely. Like crushing people indoors. She kills the teacher because seemingly the teacher is caring for everyone except her, right? So it's the one piece of it that I was always like, why does she kill that teacher when the teacher's the only one who actually cared? But then you realize like she's standing on stage, terrified, covered in blood. Nobody came to her rescue. Nobody, right?
Well, she actually does visually see the teacher laughing, but it's all in her head.
I was saying that in my mind too, I was like, all right, that part is in her head. But even then, like they worry so much about taking Tommy off the stage and literally just leave this girl there covered in pig's blood. No one runs up with like, grab a fucking tablecloth, wrap her in it or something, like show some compassion for this girl. But it was like, nope, the football star or track star who fell on the ground, we're going to drag him off. And now she's like, now you're all fucked. none of you are going to get saved.
Yeah.
You know, the only girl that does get away, right, is the girl who tried to help her.
Yes, she gets spared because the teacher actually punts her out of the prom because
Yeah.
she's not allowed to be there. She lost her prom privileges or whatever. But yeah, as a result of her good deed, she is sort of spared in that regard. I mean, I thought the fire hose was cool because they could have easily done something where like she turns on the sprinklers or whatever to start the electrical
fire hose coming out.
It's so violent, the fire hose. Like, yeah, and
it's not trying to get sprayed with
it's like a serpent too, right? It's like a snake, just
which is back to the religious, symbolism.
Smart choice.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it didn't look cheesy. Like the movement, the animation of the hose looked actually pretty good. I didn't take me out of it.
Right. Like I was looking for like the strings,
it was well done.
Again, when you remaster these films and their tricks are hidden in the past, but in present day, they're hard to hide. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that whole thing was awesome. The culmination of her power was just really cool.
And just the way she does it, right? Like it's like the hands like this, like the way that she just like flicks her hands.
Or sometimes she just a movement of her head. Yeah.
Like all of those movements combined. So you get this fragile, very soft spoken, yes, mama, I'm sorry, mama. And then you get just savage.
That contrast.
The eyes, the big eyes, the ginger like lashes that like disappear in the right lighting, right? Which makes it terrifying. Just the whole thing. Like
she starts to look very demonic.
Right. Like she is so beautiful. And they really do that with the prom look where she does what the teacher says, the little curl in her hair and the little bit of mascara and a little lipstick, right? That whole thing. And then that's gone. And just went from angel to devil in 2 seconds.
And she finally makes her way home, and mama makes the mistake of stabbing her in the back. And that was the last thing mama would ever do because she crucifies her on that dagger archway in the kitchen with pretty much anything that had a pointy end in the kitchen. And she freezes her in the exact same pose as the Jesus that's in that closet
that she constantly locks her in.
Yeah. I mean,
it's almost like their confessional. It's like their home-built confessional booth, right? Go in there and pray.
Right.
And the Jesus in there with his weird eyes, like, oh my God, that's haunting. God, no, thank you.
Well, even that Jesus sort of has similar hair to her mother too. It has like it's longer, but it's curly, like the mom has. But again, really, really powerful, like religious imagery, well shot, just another like crazy iconic scene. And then also ultimately the house just engulfs into hell, like that churchy. Yeah. That church-like, like angelic white house with all the candles and everything in it. Like
I wish it would have just burnt down. That's my one thing.
Well, again, it's supernatural, right? I mean, they're going to go for it.
That's true. Yeah. I got to remember that. But I would have a more perfect movie would have just been that everything that they did, in the madness, the candles fell and the house burned down. And that was their fate.
As a result of like the scuffle between the two.
Exactly. Like I would have preferred that than like, what is it called? Like when a black hole or whatever in the ground when shit just sinkhole. Yeah. Like that's pretty much what it felt like.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you're supposed to take it as like Carrie is literally dragging her mother to hell and with her.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, I definitely predict that this is going to be super high on the list. I think it's going to be top 3, but you did point out to me last night, you were reading the list off to me and I was going, oh my God.
It's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard. It's
some
a pretty
of them
strong list of movies.
Yeah, we've got some contenders. I shared the list on our stories again, just to get some feedback on what should we watch next. And actually it was funny. People did say Pet Sematary when I posted it, and that's what we watched.
Okay.
But there's some other really good ones on there. Again, some ones that we haven't seen, or haven't seen in a really long time.
Most of these we haven't seen in a really long time. And that's the next thing is
what's the other one? Don't Look Now? That's the one we haven't seen for sure. Seen it.
But we're staying in the 20th century for now. We're not doing anything modern.
Yeah, not yet.
Only because when we started this experiment, it was because it's 2020 and there's no new movies out. There's nothing new to see. And we were like, you know what? Why don't we just revisit stuff that we haven't seen in forever? Like, just go to the older ones. Yeah. And it'll feel kind of new. And it has.
It has, because I've been watching some of them being like, I don't even remember this. I don't even remember what happened.
So it's like a new movie to you. Yeah.
Yeah, because I watched them so many times growing up that like you forget about them. And as time goes on, to your point, like there's new movies and, you get enveloped in those. But it's been fun actually just going back and finding these, but finding new ones, right? We have our own list of newer ones that we really love, but we're definitely learning about ones that we didn't even know about, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited more so for those, but I'm excited to watch some of my old favorites, and I hope that they stay favorites.
Yeah. No, I'm
going to be so upset.
I can relate to that. I was slightly worried about Child's Play.
I was really upset about
but I was pleasantly
Nightmare on Elm
surprised.
Street.
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street was rough. And we watched Freddy 3, Dream Something.
Dream Candy.
It was horrendously bad. I don't think that Nightmare on Elm Street is going to be my thing. I don't find Freddy scary so at all.
It should be good. It
as
should
I wear
be.
a Freddy Krueger t-shirt.
Yeah, but again, it's still iconic. The character itself in a good picture or a good moment is terrifying. But watching the movies, when we watched the third one, that's the one that everyone claims is like the best one. And what we said, right, was that some of those kills would have been insane if you did them today. Like there's the guy and all of his, I can't even talk about it, all of his like veins, and they puppet him and he's walking off. If I had seen that in like today's way, I wouldn't even be able to watch. But in this one, again, it was just like kitschy and weird and everything looks plastic and the music sounds so 80s in the worst way.
Oh yeah, there's some sort of theme song that they made specifically for this, and it's like an 80s hair band pop metal type thing.
The only good music in Freddy is 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Yeah. Terrifying, again, because you're talking about little kids being creepy. And I just wish Freddy was better. Yeah, like again, they were really good kills, and then it's like, here's a giant Freddy snake that eats this girl whole, and you're laughing. You're like, it looks like a turd with Freddy's face on it, and he's just munching on this girl.
It's horrible.
So bizarre. And I just remember being terrified, but I'm like, I don't know.
Meanwhile, 10 years earlier than that, they were making Carrie.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
So you're like, you should have been better. The more we watch the very old ones and find that they're still good, you're like, what did you do with this franchise?
I'm starting to think that the 70s is just like a golden age of horror films that I never really considered it. But I mean, so far, almost everything we've watched in the 70s, we've loved. And the 80s stuff has been very hit and miss.
Yeah. I think, again, because they stayed within the means of their
Do we have any
tools.
90s stuff on this list for Supernatural? Or was that sort of like a dead genre by then?
I feel like, I don't know if any of them hit the 90s, but I'll double check. We don't want to give away the list, so I don't want to say anything.
Okay. Well, you did give it away on Instagram.
I did, but you don't have to follow and see if you're interested.
All right, well, that'll do it for episode 2. We'll watch some more movies this week, and we'll have another episode next time with 2 more on this list.
Yeah, and you can follow us everywhere. We made it real simple for you, whether you are a YouTuber, a Twitter person, or tweeter, if you will, an Instagrammer, Facebooker, not my favorite option, but it's there. Everything is under
Spotify.
Me Dark Presents. Yep. I don't consider Spotify social media aspect. I guess YouTube's not either. Anyway,
well, you can
all of it.
You could follow it. You could subscribe there if that's where you get your podcast.
100%. So the actual pages you can follow, everything is Me Dark Presents. The podcasts are now live on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. So we'll list all of those for you guys too. Really trying to make it easy, and if you want, you can always just watch clips on our Instagram page.
For sure.
Whatever makes you happy. Whatever
Thanks, guys.
Float your boat.
Take it easy.